We'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to the June 14th meeting at the City of Mount Pearl Council. First item is to accept the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Tessier, seconded by Councillor Aker. Are there any additions to the agenda beyond what is listed? I don't see anything outside the agenda today. Obviously, the CAO has gone away.
She is gone away.
See? You can tell. You can tell. There's a lack of paper. That being the case, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Contrary-minded motion is carried. The next item would be the minutes and action report from the meeting of May 31st. I'll entertain a motion moved by Councillor Stoyles to accept the minutes as presented, seconded by Councillor Lane. Any errors or omissions from the public council meeting minutes of May 31st? Errors or omissions only? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion is carried. Business arising then from the minutes of May 31st. Any business arising, Councillor Tessier?
Yes, Your Worship. Item 378, Household Hazardous Waste Day. We held a Household Hazardous Waste Day on Saturday past.
Yep.
419 households availed of the service.
That's perfect.
And that translated into 10,000 pounds of household hazardous waste, which is actually in keeping with what our old household hazardous waste collection days would collect.
You know what I'd like to have done?
What?
Had somebody there who asked them, if we didn't have this day, what would you have done with this waste?
That would have been an interesting survey, wouldn't it? Actually, you know what? It's an interesting survey to carry out. But again, it indicates that people are not taking it to the landfill. If this is indicative, or if it's in keeping with what we usually collect on a household hazardous waste day, then clearly it has not been availed of, probably to the extent that it could be. But again, we're really pleased. I mean, it can be considered nothing but a success. I mean, that's 5 tons. That's an awful lot of household hazardous waste that's not going directly into the landfill. It's going to be, I guess, redirected properly and appropriately.
Absolutely. That's a very positive result. Do we get another one this year?
No. That's the only one.
No, we're only getting the one, right, this
yeah.
year, and that one cost us
It's about 16,000.
about 16,000.
Yeah.
That one cost us on top of the 132.
Yeah, but the 132 is household hazardous waste
I
and residential
know,
drop-off.
I know.
However, your point is well made.
There you go. I don't have to make it again. It's made. I thank you for that.
Your Worship, I have a question for Mr. Lush.
Councillor Lane.
So I brought this up at the last meeting. I thought it was more than $16,000.
Mr. Lush?
It came in under budget. Come on.
Did
No,
it?
it's 13 plus logistics. So some advertising only came up to 16.
About 16,000.
Okay, well that is very good news. Then.
Because I think the budget was 20, wasn't it?
Yeah, you approved 20.
Was it 20? Okay, I was wondering it wasn't 30 because we could have done another day.
Split it.
Yeah, we could have split it. So that's something we can look at. I would, though, I didn't want to get into this again because I brought it up last week, but you kind of opened the door. And maybe we should do a survey. I agree. Next time, just to see how many people, had we have not had this day, how many people would have actually brought that waste to Robin Hood Bay. Because as you say, Your Worship, this new system was implemented at Robin Hood Bay without consultation with all the municipalities, including the City of Mount Pearl. As a result, it's costing the residents approximately $125,000 a year for a household hazardous waste and construction material drop-off for 6 months of the year, which I suggest is not being utilized very much at all. And as a result, we end up having to have our own household hazardous waste day, which we always did, and have to put another $16,000 on top of that, approximately $125,000. So it's a tremendous cost. I wish we had been consulted when this was all put in place at Robin Hood Bay.
Well, I think I'm going to encourage that Councillor Tessier, we through Councillor Lane, actually, who's now on the board of the Regional Waste Management Committee, bring the results of our day to their meetings.
Absolutely.
And table it. I do think there can be a broader consideration for change or enhancement or improvement, if you would, on the plan they have in place. They can innovate and, maybe go back to the future.
Your
Anyway,
Worship, has there
Councillor
been a
Stoyles.
meeting? I didn't think the committee was actually formed yet. I hadn't heard of it because when I was at the regional meetings, for M&L, I didn't realise that they had started a meeting. Have you met Councillor?
There's one schedule.
No. The reality of it is that they started elections in the outlying areas. Of course, City of Mount Pearl, we were given a seat automatically on the committee. They had to hold elections in some of the outlying areas. That was in the process being done. I think it was done. My name was submitted to be Mount Pearl's rep on the board a long time ago now, but to date I have heard nothing. And I think it really is time. I believe I did request at a meeting a while ago that we check into it. I'm not sure if staff did. I would ask that we do again to find out exactly when this board is going to start meeting, because obviously there's having a tremendous impact on municipalities, including Mount Pearl, and all the escalating costs we've seen, and we really need to be able to have our say into what's going on.
Thank you.
I was going to say, Your Worship, some of the joint councils around the province were sending a letter into government saying it's about time to get this moving. And I was wondering, maybe it's time for us to send a
Well,
letter.
they're not as far down the road in a lot of areas of the province as they are here on the East Coast. But yes, I think an appropriate inquiry at this point in time and an encouragement to get this thing rolling from the committee perspective may be necessary, though to be honest, some of us believe the committee is not necessary. That's a story for another day. Any other business arising from the minutes of May 31st? Business arising? All right, hearing none. Back to the agenda. Our next item then would be proclamations and presentations. The first item that I'm going to do is, there are really two items here that we want to do today. The first one is I'm going to read a proclamation into the record of the council proceedings, and I'm going to ask Mr. Tremarny to have a few words to say about it. And then we have a very special presentation that I'm looking forward to making this afternoon. But first, to the proclamation. The proclamation reads, whereas in the city of Mount Pearl we are fortunate to have a variety of recreation park systems providing countless recreational opportunities for residents and visitors from around the world. And whereas recreation enhances quality of life, active living, and lifelong learning, helps people live happier and longer, develops skills and positive self-image in children and youth, develops creativity, and builds healthy bodies and positive lifestyles. And whereas recreation participation builds family unity and social capital, strengthens volunteer and community development, enhances social interaction, creates community pride and vitality, and promotes sensitivity and understanding of cultural diversity. And whereas recreation, therapeutic recreation, and leisure education are essential to the rehabilitation of individuals who have become ill or disabled or disadvantaged, or who have demonstrated antisocial behavior. And whereas the benefits provided by recreation and parks programs and services reduce health care and social service costs, serve to boost the economy, economic renewal and sustainability, enhance property values, attract new business, increase tourism, and curb employee absenteeism. And whereas our parks, open space, and trails ensure ecological sustainability, provide space to enjoy nature, help maintain clean air and water, and preserve plant and animal wildlife. And whereas all levels of government, the voluntary sector, and private enterprise throughout the province participate in the planning, development, and operation of recreation and parks programs, services, and facilities. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Mount Pearl does hereby proclaim that June, which witnesses the greening of Newfoundland and Labrador and serves as a significant gateway to family activities, has been designated as Recreation Month, which will annually recognize and celebrate the benefits derived year-round from quality public and private recreation and parks resources at the local, regional, and provincial levels. Therefore, our community, in recognition of the benefits and values that recreation, parks, and leisure services provide, hereby designate the month of June as Recreation Month, to which I have affixed my signature on behalf of the City of Mount Pearl. That's a long and detailed one, but it's an important one. And I'm going to turn to our Director of Community Services, Brian Tremarny, to tell us a little bit about some of the things going on in Mount Pearl in recognition of Recreation Month.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. June is Recreation Month. It's presented by Recreation Newfoundland and Labrador, and basically it presents recreation. Just the theme is just for the fun of it, and it's an idea to use the month of June coming into the summer months to celebrate what recreation is in our communities, and the the joy that we take out of our recreation and what we provide. In order to celebrate recreation in our community, we've set up some things for next week. For Tuesday, June the 21st, We're encouraging individuals and families to participate free of charge in a variety of activities. Such things include at the Reed Center from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. The Health and Fitness Center will be open to the public. Anyone that doesn't have a membership, you haven't been to the gym before, come on in, use the center. We have staff that will be able to assist you. We have our fitness training worker, John Akerman, there from 1 till 9, and he'll be able to assist anybody that's new to a fitness center. From 9 to 9:55 a.m. At the Reed Center again, we've got a 50-plus fitness class. From 3 till 4:15, we have low organized games for kids grades 2 to 6, and these low organized games are like parachute games, beanbag games, soccer, these kinds of things. Just for kids to come out and with families, come out and enjoy the recreation space at the Reed Center. A couple more things. The 4:30 to 5:20, there's a Zumba class for families, for parents and children. And then from 7 to 7:50, there's an adult Zumba class, again at the Reed Center. And at the Mount Pearl Pool, from 11:45 to 1:15, we have free swimming, free adult noon swimming.
I was going to say, we're going to let it go, Brian.
That word almost came out wrong.
Carry on.
17 years old and above. And at all of these events, we'll also have some door prizes drawn for. So we are just encouraging families, kids, adults, seniors to come on out on Tuesday, June 21st, and celebrate June as Recreation Month. Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir, very
Thank
much.
you.
It looks like an active and interesting month, and a lot of activities already underway, and many more planned between now and the end of June. So that's a very positive thing. Councillor Walsh.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. It might be a nice time for us to acknowledge as well, Your Worship, and I'm sure Council will join me in doing this, the tremendous work of Mr. Tremarney, the members of our Community Service Department in providing the recreational programs for all of our residents, from very young children to our camp programs, to our seniors. We have the strongest and most vibrant 50-plus or seniors independence group. They actually combine in the entire province. So, Brian, to you and your staff, and to the legion of volunteers who help you in community services, one of whom we'll be acknowledging very shortly. Thank you very much for all that you do. It's important. Yeah, it's on actually. It's important that we acknowledge the role that community services, recreation plays in the lives of all of our children and adults. The demographic has changed quite a bit in the province, and our community is no exception. One time, Mount Pearl was focused almost exclusively on the programs that we run for children, the young children, a lot of the sports programs, but of course we are an aging population. All I need to do is look at the directors on this side of the room. I can say that now because Stefan is not there. He's temporarily gone. Either we're getting a lot older, or these guys are getting a lot younger, aren't they? They really are. So to you, Brian, your staff, and to all of the volunteers who play such a vital role in providing these programs and delivering the programs, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, very much, and I'm glad that you pointed that out. We do have a rather large staff, particularly this time of year, that engages in community services, park recreation activity on behalf of the city, and yeah, this is a real busy season when summertime hits for them, and Recreation Month is a good time to recognize all the good work that they do. Thank you for that. I want to turn things back to you again, Councillor Walsh, if I might. Today, we are in our chamber today, we have Mr. Jim Bolger with us and members of his family. And Mr. Bolger, long-term resident of Mount Pearl, and a tremendous volunteer in this community, one of, I want to say thousands, and I don't think that's a lie, in Mount Pearl. But he has been recognized by Recreation Newfoundland and Labrador in a very special way, and I want you as chair of our committee to speak to that today, because we have a very special presentation for you, Mr. Bolger.
Oh, thank you very much, Your Worship. You're correct, Your Worship. Recreation Newfoundland and Labrador recently held their provincial meetings in Gander, and the City of Mount Pearl's Community Recreation Department made a submission to the provincial board for a special volunteer recognition award for 2011 to Mr. Jim Bulger. And we're delighted to have some members of his family, his wife, and members of the family with him. I know some are away, Jim, and I'm sure they're here in spirit with us today as well. I'm just going to take a couple of minutes, if I can, Your Worship, just to highlight some of the accomplishments of Mr. Bulger, knowing full well that one of the things that Mr. Bulger does not like is, one, to be called Mr. Bulger, and two, to be recognized in any way, such as we're doing here today. So, Jim, we'll try to go a little easy on you, but I think it's important that we recognize you in particular and what you stand for in terms of the tremendous community volunteerism that you have provided. For 35 years, Your Worship and members of council, Mr. Jim Bulger has provided incredible community support and volunteerism in a wide variety of capacities, and I'd just like to take a minute to highlight some of these. We all know Jim as a fixture at what was Pearlgate Lanes and now Max Lanes. He's there running the YVC programs, coaching, mentoring, fundraising, doing administrative work. As I say, anytime you go there, particularly on the weekends, Jim is there and he's involved with the young children in the programs there. What maybe some of you don't know, because I didn't know it was quite this long, for 21 years, Jim has actually served as bowling's representative on the Frosty Festival Committee. 21 years is a long time, and there's a song about that. Right now, he's actually the program director for Max YVC Bowling. When Pearlgate Lanes made that change, Jim, as you know, was a very, very strong advocate of maintaining the larger lanes. He didn't win that battle. We didn't win that battle. But we were certainly in his corner, and nobody was a stronger advocate for maintaining the 20 lanes there than was Jim himself. The very first time that we presented a Focus on Youth Adult Volunteer Working with Youth Award in 1989, the recipient of that award, and deservingly so, was Jim Bulger. In 1990, Jim was named Volunteer of the Year for Mount Pearl Soccer. In 1997, Jim had the honor and the privilege of being inducted in both the Mount Pearl Soccer Hall of Fame and also in the Mount Pearl Sports Hall of Fame in the same year. Jim's interest, his real interest and passion, apart from working in sport generally and volunteering in the community and his family, is really working with people that are somewhat disenfranchised and marginalized in some way. He's been very, very actively involved in a number of different committees, such as Children's Wish Foundation, also the St. Vincent de Paul in his parish, which does incredibly good work for people in the community generally. With soccer, where I first became a friend to Jim and knowing his volunteer work, he 20 years served as a coach, as an executive member of soccer. He was girls coordinator, recreation soccer building maintenance person, again a fixture anytime he went down to those fields. He coached the Mount Pearl girls soccer provincial teams, as well, of course, when kids were going through the system, coached the Mount Pearl Senior High, it's Mount Pearl Central High at the time, Jim, the soccer teams there, and won many provincial soccer championships. There's been no other sports organization won as many national awards as YVC Bowling, and that's in large part because of the contribution that Jim and others have made to that. And Jim is he'd be the first one to pass on the congratulations to the other people who work with him as well. Jim has also been very actively involved in Mount Pearl Marlins. He actually officiated in excess of 40 different meets over the years there. More recently, Jim and a lot of his buddies, I think, Jim, a lot of your friends and colleagues and some of the fellow members of the Hall of Fame, when we host not only in the city of Mount Pearl but even in the region, many of the national meetings, conventions, tournaments, Jim and a number of his friends put together a transportation committee and have done that for things such as national soccer, national police chiefs, the national hockey meetings, national bowling events, world boxing, national track and field, and the list goes on. In 2008, for his involvement and I guess in recognition of his outstanding involvement in 5-pin bowling, he was also inducted into Newfoundland and Labrador 5-pin Provincial Bowling Hall of Fame. He's probably in every Hall of Fame that probably exists in the province. As I said, he's very recently, but in fact not just so recently, over the last number of years, Jim has had a great passion for the Special Olympics and the bowling programs, part of the YBC, part of the Frosty Festival Committee. We know that the children who are involved in Special O, one of Jim's highlights is to see these children interacting with each other and young adults and being able to be provided with opportunities that without the likes of his volunteerism and the volunteerism of his colleagues and friends who help out just wouldn't be possible. Just on a personal note, Your Worship, when I was trying to raise some money a few years ago for Bill Royal to attend the World Blind Games, one of the first persons that I spoke to was Jim Bulger. And if I had more time and maybe a little more organizational skills, we probably would have raised $4,000 or $5,000 that night. But in an hour and a half, I think Jim and his group put together a fundraiser where they raised a couple of $1,000. I think about $2,200, Jim, and it was done. It seemed to me so flawlessly, simply because of the skills and the dedication that these people put to it. Jim is a role model, obviously, Your Worship, a mentor, a caregiver. He is the epitome of what community volunteerism means, so I think it's kind of appropriate on this day as we celebrate Recreation Month that he be honored. He's a true gentleman and a family man, and I'm particularly proud to call him a friend as well. And I'd ask you, if you wouldn't mind, please, bestowing this honor on Jim and ask him to come forward. And after that, Jim will get some members of your family all to join you and get a picture. So please feel free to come forward, and I'm sure the mayor will have a few words as well. Thank you.
Thank you, John, very much. Very, very few words. Just to say, Jim, that it is one thing. It is one thing when the sport says thank you, and it's another when the city says thank you. But to have the province of Newfoundland recognize your work and to also say through the Recreation Association in the province a thank you as well, and recognize your contribution to the quality of life we all enjoy is pretty special. So we're pretty honored to have you in the chamber today, and we're honored to be able to present this to you. But what we're going to do, Jim, is we're going to go out right there, and we're going to present it, and we're going to get all of those fine-looking people. Who have you got there with you? Who's here with you today? Your wife?
My wife, my daughter, and my future son-in-law.
The boss, the daughter, and the future slave.
Now, Leslie was actually giving us some lessons in bowling this past winter. She's pretty keen on bowling.
Jim, you come on down here. Guys, come on. And we'll put you in the middle, like this.
Oh, goodness.
How do you do that?
It's a long story, isn't it?
Jim, were you involved, Jim?
All right, and Brian is going to take a picture. Jim, take this like this. Do it this way. Everybody look at Brian,
Okay, we ready?
who apparently is into nude swimming.
Elegant smile.
Let's try one more. Flash, I think we've got enough light there. Good?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Anything you want to say?
No, thanks. I'm not saying that I like to.
Well, you come up here.
Take the microphone.
You gotta come up here. Here you go. Take that and talk away.
First of all, I'd just like to thank Gary and
It's not on, Your Worship.
Yes, it is. One, two, three.
No, maybe you can use the mayor's mic.
All right, come and get this. Come over around this side of me. Look, this side. Try that. Ed?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank Gary and Bill Fitzgerald. They're the two people, Gary Fraser, who nominated me. They rang me up, and I really didn't know what it was all about. And with regard to volunteer, I've been volunteering since I'm 20 years old, so I'm 66 now, so it's 46 years, so it's a lot longer than here before I came here. And I love volunteering, I love soccer, I love bowling, and when my kids were swimming, I loved to be at the pool with them, and they played hockey, they were in everything, so I went with them and I just kept it up, and I really enjoyed volunteering, and I know most of the people here anyway, and I work with many of them, and I work with Paul. I work with the City of St. John's for about 20 years, so I know pretty well the municipal infrastructure work and a lot about it, and I know a lot about volunteerism, and I know a lot about sports. So thank you very, very much for everybody here for this award, and I certainly will put this in a nice place in my home. Thank you very much.
While Mr. Bolger is still here, there was
Hold on now. Okay, I'm sorry, Councillor Stiles.
Your Worship, while Mr. Bolger is still here, I wanted to say that in Saturday's paper, there was a real nice article in on the Max bowling team that they won a championship in Regina just last month. And of course, Mr. Bolger is there as the director of Max Lane, as the group that went away and won the championship. So I just wanted to say heads up. I was going to mention it in new business this evening because I had taken it with me, but I just want to say congratulations to the team, and of course we know what great work you do in the community. Great job.
Thank you, Lucy. Now, Jim, you don't have to suffer through this meeting. Unless you want to, you don't have to suffer through this meeting. Right? You said you spent 20 years working in municipal government, so you know what this is going to be like.
After 3 years with Paul.
3 years with Paul is enough. All right, we have no correspondence today. Our first committee report is going to be our Public Works Committee, and Public Works Chair is Councillor Tessier.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very short agenda here today for us. A couple of tenders. The first is for a rear loader garbage packer that closed on June 2nd, and we received 7 bids. We're recommending that the tender be awarded to the low bidder, which is Harvey & Company, for the bid amount of $186,111, and that includes tax, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Tessier, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried.
The second is the tender for a dump body for a 1-ton pickup, which closed on May 19th. We received 2 bids, and we're recommending that the tender be awarded to the low bidder, which is Western Hydraulics, for the bid amount of $5,085, and that also includes tax, and I so move.
Moved and seconded by Councillor Walsh. Questions, comments? All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
That is it.
Okay, next committee report, Community Services. Councillor Walsh, floor is yours.
Thank you, Worship. 3 brief items, actually. The first is in preparation for our City Day celebrations. We need to get ready for the porta potties, and we have a tender out for that. We had a couple of bids, and we're asking for the support of council to provide this tender to the low bidder, D&S Vacuum, for $25,31.20, including taxes, and I so move.
It is moved by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor Lane. Comment, anything? All those in favor?
Really?
Going once, going twice.
We'll pass on that in terms of a comment.
Motion is carried.
The summer day camp registration, just a little update for council. We have a small waiting list, but we had an incredible enrollment, over 2,050 children for the day camp, which is not a surprise. Every year it's an overwhelming success. In fact, we often have to turn people away. The waiting list generally applies to children in certain grade levels where we are over capacity, so we then put people on a wait list to see if we can accommodate them at some point later. So again, this is a great opportunity for the children and for the parents to be provided with an opportunity for their children. It's also, by the way, an incredibly good employer for a lot of students in the city of Mount Pearl during the summer. And the program has had a first-class reputation all along. So that's just a little update for council.
Thank you,
I wanted to update you as well, Your Worship, on the 20-minute makeover. So far, we've recorded in excess of 3,000 bags of garbage, taken quite a number of large items out of some of the open spaces and trailways. We've had over 2,000 people just register. These are people who've actually registered. We do know that quite a number of people actually get involved and unfortunately don't take the time to register. Not that the registration is a big deal, but it gives us an opportunity to track a little better the number of people who are involved, but it more so provides us with a better understanding of which areas of the city have been cleaned, because when they register, they normally identify the area in the city in which they're going to focus. So again, I just want to thank all of the many individuals, the groups. We have a lot of church groups, a lot of service clubs, federal government departments, agencies. A lot of our employers do, particularly areas around Donovan Children's Business Park, that sort of thing. And we really do appreciate their help. And I do want one more time to say thanks to our major sponsors, Tim Hortons, and this year for the first time, Newfoundland and Labrador Housing, who've come on board. And this is a real nice fit for them as well, and we thank them for their support. There is one item, Your Worship, that I'd like to do as part of Community Services business, and it relates to the law enforcement torch run. It wasn't in the Dropbox. Just to let you know that this is going to be taking place, as it does every year, in the middle of June. This Friday, we will have the Special Olympics Torch Run. This is where the law enforcement agencies and the people at Her Majesty's Penitentiary and others who participated in that are involved in the run. They'll be at the City Hall here in Mount Pearl at approximately 2 p.m. So any members of council or anyone from the public who'd like to come out and just say hello, provide a little bit of support, meet and greet some of the runners and some of the participants are most welcome. 2 o'clock this Friday here at City Hall. Thanks very much, Worship.
Thank you. That concludes community services. Next is corporate services. Councillor Lane.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before I get to the items in the kit, I do want to recognise Mr. Jason Silver. Of course, as council is aware,
Yeah, we got a new guy in town.
we do. We do indeed. And as council is aware, over the last couple of months, Mr. Lewis, who was our Chief Administrative Officer, retired, and Miss Peach was the successful candidate in filling that position. So as a result, the domino effect kicks in, of course, and we had to replace Miss Peach's position as the Director of Corporate Services. So very pleased to advise Council and our citizens that Mr. Silver, Jason Silver, is our new Director of Corporate Services. He comes to us with extensive experience and credentials. He is a chartered accountant, and he worked for a number of years with Noseworthy Chapman, chartered accountants, and most recently he was actually the internal auditor with the City of St. John's, and he worked there for the past 4 years. He is a Mount Pearl boy, born and bred, which is very good, and we're very glad to see him defecting back from the dark side and to the City of Mount Pearl, where he belongs.
Defecting from the dark side. Do you know that he only started, what, Jason, 2 weeks ago you started? About 2 weeks ago now, June 4th or something like that?
Just under.
Yeah, you know he had a full head of hair when he came here? And already, look what
So
we've
did
done.
I. How about you?
Me too.
Yeah.
Welcome, Mr. Silver. We're delighted to have you. We're looking forward to your contribution to our city for many, many years to come.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Okay. Next item, Your Worship, I have here is the emergency management plan for the city. As council is aware, over the last few months, we hired a consultant to take our existing emergency management plan and to update it. We had one for many years, but certainly the time had come, we felt, to take it out, I guess, and to update it, bring it up to standard, so on. So that work has been done. Members of council have now had an opportunity to review it and give their input. What is now required, Your Worship, is we have to forward it to Emergency Services Division of the Department of Municipal and Provincial Affairs, and it has to go to them for review and approval. Once they've had a chance to review it and they give it the thumbs up, it'll come back to council, and then we will formally adopt it. So what I'm looking for now is I just have to make a motion for us to forward that draft plan to Municipal Affairs, and I so move.
It is moved by Councillor Lane, seconded by Councillor Tessier. We've been some time working on this, but since we brought the consultants, it hasn't been long, right? It's only been what? 5 or 6 weeks?
Yeah, it's only been like a couple of months or less, which is good. And thankfully, we haven't had a lot of opportunity to utilize such a plan. But as we're aware, like we've seen with Hurricane Igor as an example, there's a classic example where really, I think that we had a very good response to Hurricane Igor, and everybody did what had to be done, but we really didn't have that solid plan in place, that said, do A, B, C, and so on, have all the I's dotted and T's crossed. So now we'll have that, and for any future emergencies should they occur.
I look forward to our having that completed soon, getting comments from the department. And I would, will we put this plan on our website? Will this be something that would be generally available to the public, or
Only once it's approved.
or would we not? Well, and I'm thinking. In
I don't
terms of
see
once
any
we
problem
approve-
with having it on the
Once
website. I
we-
don't know if that was intended, but I don't see any. Mr. Yevchek maybe could answer.
Is this the kind of plan that we would
Not to
put
put you
out?
on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot.
Well, no, I'm just asking the question, I guess.
Hey, Your Worship, I don't think we had a discussion about whether it should be on the website or not. A lot of the documentation really has detailed contact information in terms of internal contacts. I'm not too sure that that part of the document would be on the website. But we certainly could talk about it, I guess, afterwards if indeed
Yeah, I
we should have it on the website
Maybe
or not.
Certain
general
parts,
plan,
maybe.
the general,
Maybe like
I
a
would think the
Post
general
Notes version of
Yeah.
plan of what we do in certain
Yeah.
circumstances would be interesting. Okay,
Well, I guess
anyway.
we'll just take the appropriate parts, perhaps.
Anybody else have a comment or a question? Because I obviously freaked everybody out with that. If we have
Not
none
at all.
others, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried.
Next, Your Worship, we have invoices for approval listed there 1 through 15, totaling $559,716.80, and I so move.
It has been moved and seconded. Anything on any of the items listed 1 through 15? Anybody have a question on any of it?
I guess, Your Worship, number 11, Simcoe Refrigeration, $308,000. I guess this has to do with the EcoChill, does it?
I would think so, yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried.
And that's it, Your Worship.
And
Thank
that concludes it. Economic Development, Communication, Tourism. The acting chair for the meeting was the Deputy Mayor, but I'm assuming you're going to take this on yourself now?
Yes, I
Okay,
will.
Councillor Stoyles?
First, I want to thank Councillor Lack for filling in for me, as I was away on vacation last week. And thank you very much, and Councillor Aker for coming along as well. We have a couple of items, Your Worship. The Atlantic Business Magazine, we'd like for you to send a letter to Mr. Greer Hunt of Hunt's Transport. Mr. Hunt was nominated as one of the top 50 CEOs in Atlantic Business Magazine. Mr. Hunt started his business with just one truck in the early 80s. His business is located, of course, in Dungan Industrial Park, and we want to say hats off to him. He has now 50 tractors and 150 trailers and 120 employees. He certainly has come a long way. He's a former Bellona. I know Mr. Hunt personally, actually, over the years, and certainly great to see him be recognised in this way. Also, Your Worship, there was 14 other top CEOs in Atlantic Canada were from Newfoundland. Out of 50, 14 of them were from Newfoundland. Was from Atlantic Canada. So it was from Newfoundland, so that was great to see. Also, Your Worship, the Northeast Avalon Rugby Boards is having their AGM on June 23rd, and it's going to be at Capitol Hotel. And of course, we have a couple of representatives on that. We have Councillor Dave Aker and Rhonda Elwood, the manager of economic development. And just anybody is interested in attending, they will be presenting the financial statement and that at that time as well.
I'm assuming, Councillor Aker, you will be attending?
Agreed, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Also, Your Worship, another company that was recognised this past couple of weeks was Central Dairies. They have developed a new product, specialty cheese, and it's going to be in a lot of the stores in Newfoundland and also in Nova Scotia. And Your Worship, we would like for you to send a letter to them as well, saying congratulations.
Only if I get some cheese.
Well,
They got to send us down some cheese.
Maybe we should deal for that, I think.
Guys, what do you think? I think they should send us some cheese,
maybe
right?
for nice
Well,
one,
we
they
won't
might
turn
send
it down.
us some.
We won't turn down the cheese.
But just want to say hats off to him again. Great to see him developing new products right here in Newfoundland.
Absolutely. We'll be honored to do all of that, Councillor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're up to Planning and Development Committee report. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before I begin, I just want to thank and commend Councillor Walsh on that, the accolades that he brought to Mr. Bulger. Very, very nice, very fitting, and
Very well done.
Very well done. So I appreciate that, and I'm sure he appreciates as well, he and his family. The first item, Your Worship, has to do with a request that we've received from Solid Rock Wesleyan Church, located on 107-111 Park Avenue. The request is here to subdivide the property here into two lots, a residential lot as well as the church lot. And the map and the aerial photograph is included there. And what they want to do essentially is divide the front portion of lot 107, which is where the house is located, and reduce that lot size to meet the minimum requirements for the residential medium density land use zone where it's located. And the extra piece of land, consolidate that with the church land. As you can see from the diagram there on the map, the church land sort of wraps in behind the property on 107. So essentially their plan is to eventually sell the residence and consolidate that land with the church land to make it a little bigger to continue with their church business. The Planning and Development Department sees no problem with this. As is outlined, the proposal is not for a physical change to the development of these lots, but is simply a change in the demarcation or the delineation of the lot boundaries there. And again, it'll be a new residential lot and the church lot, again, for the purpose of selling the residential lot. So the department has no problems with it, and the committee is recommending that the proposed subdivision of land be approved and that a development permit be issued subject to the 4 conditions outlined there, and I so move.
Okay, so I gather that this house belongs to the church as well.
Yes.
That's the idea here. So
Yep.
This is where, no doubt, the minister resided,
I'm not sure.
and now they're going to sell the property?
Yeah,
Going to sell the house?
that's my understanding, yeah.
All right, I got it, that's fine.
Okay.
Any question or comment?
Yeah.
All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
The next item here, Your Worship, is the rescinding of an order that was issued on May the 25th, 2011, regarding work that was to be completed at 30 Corey King Drive. And this was concerning contravention of the Mount Pearl development regulations and our building regulations. This order was then later ratified at our public council meeting dated May the 31st. The outstanding matters, however, have been completed to this point now, so the department is recommending that the above noted order be rescinded, and I so move.
It is moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Aker. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried.
The next item here, Your Worship, is an application from a business for the locating of a portable sign on city property. The application is from the business Lifestyle Health Services, and they've requested to erect a portable, non-illuminated sign on a piece of city-owned land to advertise for their business, which is lab services in this particular case. The department, however, is recommending that this application be refused on 2 grounds. And the first is that the approval of such a sign would set a precedent for other private business signs to be placed on city property, which is not in the public interest. And the second is that this is an off-site directional sign, which is not permitted under our development regulations. So as such, the committee supported this recommendation to turn down or deny this application, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. Comments? All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried.
And the next item here, Your Worship, is a variance request for the reduction in the minimum flanking street side yard standard at 22 Sunrise Avenue. The property here at Sunrise Avenue is requesting to build on an extension to the east side of the dwelling. And in order to accommodate this, they're applying for a 3.75% variance, which is very slight. Again, the department has, the variance was circulated to local residents, neighboring properties. There was no trouble. We had 1 response, and they were in support of the variance. The department doesn't see any problem with this, and they're recommending that the variance be approved. And as such, our committee is recommending that the application to build the extension to 22 Sunrise Avenue be approved and the development permit be issued, subject to the complying to the regulations and stipulations as outlined there, and I so move.
It is moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion carried.
The next item, Your Worship, has to do with, the Green Team. The Green Team Conservation Corps project. In a previous public meeting, we announced that our application to the Newfoundland Labrador Conservation Corps was successful, and we received funding for the development of a Green Team, a 4-member Conservation Corps Green Team. And this is just an information purposes here, Your Worship, to let the public know and council know that the Green Team has been selected, and they are going to start work on the 4th of July. And the purpose of the Green Team, one of their main mandates is to go along the Waterford River and to pick up garbage along the banks of it as well as to identify any of the larger items that are in the river that they can't remove themselves. They'll be noted, and we'll use machinery or equipment to get it out at a later time.
Machinery, lots of machinery.
Well,
Big, heavy backhoes.
And you might be driving, I heard, right?
If they'll allow me.
Yeah, that would be scary, I think. Anyways,
Some people would call it dredging. I call it cleaning.
right.
The
So
river.
this is a step towards this. If we can get some of the bigger items out of that river and clean up some of the garbage there, it'll certainly increase the flow of the water through that. So that's a positive thing.
We're going to have 8 weeks.
8 weeks.
It should look pretty good when it's done.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
An
that's
8 week,
super.
35-hour a
Just
week.
great.
Your Worship, I had a question. I was just wondering, I know it's for those young people going to have taken this on and as a summer job and going to be working at it. I'm just wondering if there was any way that there could be a volunteer day included in this, because there's an awful lot of people. I know friends and lobbyists at Waterford River back a number of years ago had a large group of people who actually did this kind of stuff. They worked in conjunction with fisheries and that, and they had done. I'm just wondering if there was any way that some people who might want, because they're not going to obviously accomplish every bit of the river.
No.
I'm just wondering, I'm sure when people see this today and know that we're looking at doing it, I'm wondering if we had a Saturday for people who wanted to volunteer to come out and do it. I know there's people who've done it in the past that would only be quite willing to take a Saturday or one night during the week for a couple of hours and go out and help to get more and more done. Maybe after several weeks and they see how they're doing, would it maybe is something that the department can look into, because I know it's a group of people that's interested in doing that.
I'd recommend that too.
That's a good idea.
I'd recommend it to Community Services. Mr. Yevchek wants to address this matter.
Yes, Your Worship. Councillor Stoyles, in terms of the program for the Green Team, they have a whole series of events and initiatives over the course of 8 weeks. One weekend they'll be at City Days promoting environmental awareness of the river.
Yeah, they're not just working on the river.
That's great, and the importance of the river and so on. Another piece, they will actually be involved actually with Rotary. We've heard recently Rotary has an interest in this as well. So they'll be involved with Rotary in terms of a presentation, in terms of the work that's being done there. And they will also be having at least one day in which they will, very much like as you're asking, getting the community involved. And the involvement, particularly in Donovan's Business Park, where there's a lot of businesses that actually back onto or front onto the tributary there, and having basically a cleanup day that involves the businesses there. And certainly we could fold it into a much bigger event with other volunteers. The other volunteer, or not the volunteer, but the other involvement with this is also our youth action team, YAT. They will be involved with the Green Team as well. So as you are requesting, I think you're seeing there's going to be a lot of involvement by the community over the course of the 8 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Yevchek. I also want to mention that the company in Donovan's, Black & McDowell, every year, the last Saturday in June, and it's all across the province, they do a major cleanup through Donovan's, and part of that is the river in Donovan's as well. I've gone a number of years, and I know they're doing it again this year, and it's the last Saturday in June is when they normally do that as well.
Perfect, perfect. Anyway, I am delighted to see that our efforts to try and do something about, really making a big major cleanup, not just to pick up some litter, but a major cleanup in the river as well as along its edges is now happening. And everybody involved, you're to be applauded on this. I think this is absolutely wonderful, and I like Councillor Stoyle's idea of getting the community engaged for a day to do something. I would like this piece of that urban river to be the most pristine through the whole jurisdiction, and that challenges our neighbors both to our left and to our right, to also do their part. And I think it's just positive for everybody. Thank you for that.
Oh, no worries. I was just going to comment about the education piece, because that's one thing I'm glad to see that the Green Team will be doing. I know Councillor Walsh mentioned that we had 2,000 volunteers picking up 3,000 bags of garbage. As is stated here, that the purpose of their mandate is to make the public aware about the value of this natural resource, this beautiful river valley that we have flowing through our city here. I was out for a walk last evening. My wife and I went from Park Avenue down around Twin Falls and right up the pathway, right up almost, to Winston Avenue. And it's just so lush and green and beautiful wetlands this time of year. And it looks pristine. I mean, I know why they call it Steady Waters down towards Forest Avenue, because it was just a mirror. It was absolutely beautiful. But what I find disheartening, getting back to the 20-minute makeover, yes, it's great that we had thousands of volunteers out. I participated in that as well. But it's just disheartening that, the area that we cleaned up, a day or two later, I mean, the garbage is there. I mean, our staff does a wonderful job. I saw them out cleaning up all the garbage. And I made this comment before. We got to get the public educated about the environment. I mean, this is not city council city. It's not the city staff city. It's the 25,000 resident city, and we got to participate and look after this. And hopefully someday we don't need a 20-minute makeover, because everyone will respect, our pathways, the Waterford River, our sidewalks, our open spaces.
That would be the goal.
So we don't have to have this. So I'm delighted that they have that educational piece, because I'm still shocked at the number of people that litter without a second thought. That they'll wheel down their windows and they'll throw out
Amazing, isn't
a bag of garbage. It's
amazing.
This day and age, it absolutely shocks me. So I'm delighted that we have that educational campaign. Anyway, sorry about that. I'll get out my soapbox now.
Oh, well, good soapbox. You're on a good soapbox.
That's the tree hugger in me, as
That's it.
a former councillor would call me. All right.
That's the granola bar.
Okay. Call it what you will.
Kumbaya.
Kumbaya. I'm next to the Jolly Green Giant, so he has nothing to say here. All right, the next item, Your Worship, is a report from the Affordable Seniors Housing Committee. And as you know, Your Worship, the ASH Committee, or the Affordable Seniors Housing Committee, was approved by Council. This committee was approved to form May 3rd, 2011. And since that time, we approached two members of the community to join the committee, and graciously they accepted. So we have Shirley Boone, the president of the Seniors Independence Group, and Mr. Jim Greenland, and they're joining Councillor Aker and me as chair, along with our staff, on this particular committee. And as the name suggests, we're looking at, the issue of affordable seniors housing. Some of the highlights are there. We've met 4 times since May.
It's busy.
Pardon me?
It's a lot of meetings.
Well, we took this on, and like I said, the 2 community reps are gung-ho, and the staff as well. So you can see some of the items that we've been looking at. Just to highlight some, one of the things we did do was a survey, and I apologize for the paper here, but I didn't have it in digital form. It's the Affordable Seniors Housing Survey, and we distributed it to the Seniors Independence Group, and we got about 110 responses here. And the purpose of this, Your Worship, was to gauge the need, if you will. I think we all know on Council the need, because during the last election campaign it was an issue. But it was interesting to see the data when it came back. And one of the very first question that we asked was, are you considering to move to a seniors housing, a rental housing, in the next few years? And about 46% indicated that they were. So quite a large number. And again, we had 110. And the average age for this group was 100% of the people that responded were over the age of 61. 52% were 71 to 80, and 14% were over the age of 81. So, they indicated that they would like to move to their to rental accommodations. And another question that we asked was, do you currently own your home? And 62% indicated that they own their home, and they live either by themselves or with one other individual. But in the discussions, what they indicated was they're at a stage in their life now where they don't want to stay in their house. The house is too big. It's too expensive. It's the hassle of replacing the roof, shoveling, cutting the lawn, so on and so forth. So they would like to be able to sell their house and move into affordable seniors rental units. One of the other questions we asked is, what do you believe is the greatest challenge that's confronting our seniors in finding suitable affordable housing in the city of Mount Pearl? And the top 2 answers were affordability and availability. So 88% indicated that they were that wasn't the correct. 75 indicated affordability, and 51 indicated availability. So it is an issue here. And again, not that we didn't know that, but this sort of verified through the Seniors Independence Group what we already thought, because we all know the wait list. I think Councillor Lane mentioned at one time there's probably a 12 or 14-year wait list 18 years for Masonic Park. So there is definitely a need there for that. So that was one of the things that we looked at. because again, the purpose of this committee is to look at the issue of affordable seniors housing and investigate the opportunities of developing some units within the city. Another item that we did, or another activity, we took a tour of 2 existing affordable seniors housing complexes or projects. One is at Kerwood up in Paradise, and the other one was at Eastern Gate out in Blackmarsh Road. And the committee went just to have a look to see, we had a tour of individual units in both places. In Kerwood, I think it was, Councillor Akers, 16 units, I think, 8 on the bottom, 8 on the top. And in Eastern Gate was 12 units. And they were beautiful, beautiful. But one thing that I was looking for, what struck me about the Kerwood property was it was 2-story, but it didn't look out of place in the residential area. So it wasn't stuck out like a sore thumb. The way they had it designed, the architecture, it blended in beautifully. So we did have a tour of those 2 projects. Now, they were able to come about through funding through Newfoundland and Labrador Housing Corporation, where grants were provided. In the case of Kerwood, it was $35,000 per unit, and the not-for-profit was $125,000 per unit. So that's how they're able to make it affordable. So we took a tour of that as well. And the goal of the committee is to try to see if we can't bring some of these affordable housing units into the city. We have identified a piece of land along Municipal Avenue that we're investigating as to whether or not we could possibly develop some units there. And our hope is also to go to a public process to seek expressions of interest from developers to see if they would be interested in applying through these government programs to receive some funding to develop some affordable housing here in the city. With respect to the land that we identify. So I just wanted to bring this forward as an information piece today, Your Worship, because I did receive an email actually last week from a resident, because apparently she had heard this on your show. I don't know if someone called in or mentioned it or what have you. So she was excited about it. She too expressed, the need for it, and she was calling or emailing on behalf of her mother, wondering, was it a done deal? How do we sign on the list? And they were looking for information like that. Well, that's, we're in the process. We're still in the investigative phase, but the hope is that we will hopefully attract some of these units to the city. So that there is just for information, Your Worship.
Thank you, sir, very much. Can I just add something?
Sure.
For that?
Yep.
One of the nice things about that, Your Worship, and I certainly commend the committee for 4 meetings in a month is that's a lot of work, and good on you for doing that. I just want to mention that quite often the $35,000, although it may seem strange to some of us, is not incentive enough to actually get into some of the affordable housing. But in this case here, the contribution of the city is to actually consolidate the land. So we would actually have the land and provide the land. That would be our contribution. We're pretty serious about trying to make some of this housing available, and by providing land on that site that you identified, Deputy Mayor, we will be able to probably expedite that process. And again, it will have to go through, as you say, a full public consultation, and so it should.
Right.
But I think it's something that both the residents in the area, and particularly the seniors in Mount Pearl, in particular, who would be availing of that, would have a great interest in. So I just wanted to mention that the incentive here from our perspective is having the land as well.
Obviously we are going to work with the developer.
Yeah.
And,
Right. Well, our purpose is to facilitate the whole process, to act as the catalyst, if you will, to try to see, again, if there's any developers out there interested. And you're absolutely right. If they can avail of that funding and we can somehow help in some way, we're investigating that, what we could do with the land. That's the hope here. Sure. And again, it's just a start of something. Pastor Young, I think, with Eastern Gate, Gordon Young, he indicated that he had over 100 on their wait list.
Yes.
And they have 12 units. So, the need is there. And however many units we can build, there's no doubt that they will quickly fill up.
Yeah.
But at least it's a start to sort of address that perceived need, as Councillor Walsh indicated. All right, the next item, Your Worship, is the development permit list for May the 30th through June the 10th of 2011. And we have 5 items here, and I move that they are accepted as presented.
Development list presented. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
And the last item, Your Worship, is the building construction permits for the time period of May the 28th to June the 10th, 2011. And residential building construction during this time period totaled $641,900, while commercial construction during the same time period came in at $950,000, bringing the total for this period to $1,591,900. And I move that these amounts be accepted as presented.
Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded, and motion is carried.
And that's it from me, Your Worship. Thank
And
you.
that concludes all committee reports. I'm going back now to the minutes for a second. Guys, where did we start 2 weeks ago? Anybody remember?
The other side, I think.
Did we start on the other side, over here?
Yep.
For new business? That being the case, we're going to start over here. Councillor Aker.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just want to make note of one thing that I attended the weekend was the Walk for ALS, which was at the Reed Centre. Councillor Stoyles was also there. A very small group of dedicated volunteers managed to raise about almost $4,000 towards research and support for ALS people in this province. And as I understand it, I think provincially they raised almost $100,000. So we had a good turnout. So I want to congratulate all those that volunteered and all those that made donations. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Councillor Walsh.
I just want to mention two things, Your Worship. Many of the residents of Mount Pearl make their living by way of the offshore, as you know. And I just wanted to highlight something that's been in the news. It's not new news, but I just wanted to throw the support of this council and my personal support against the federal government's intention to close the Maritime Rescue Subcentre in St. John's. I know that there are 12 jobs being lost there, Your Worship, but this, as much as we hate to see displacement of any employees, this is really not about the jobs. This centre serves as a strategic first response location for both the fishery and for the offshore. And right now, Your Worship, at this particular time in our history, Newfoundland and Labrador is generating not even hundreds of millions, but literally billions of dollars in terms of revenue with the offshore. Unfortunately, the fishery is not what it was, but it still generates an alarming amount of money. And
$5 billion.
Yeah, still an incredible resource, even though it pales by comparison to what it was formerly. The issues, of course, are of response times, but it's also such a tremendously important issue of life safety. These are not the kinds of issues, Your Worship, that the federal government should be focusing on and trying to save 5% or 10% of the budget. There couldn't be a worse time, and there couldn't be a more inappropriate place in terms of the location on the east coast of Newfoundland and Labrador at this particular time to cut these services. So I'd like to ask the support of the Council of the City of Mount Pearl, all of my colleagues, to write the Minister, to express our concern, to highlight some of the issues that are so obvious to us who live in this province, and to try to protect the lives and the safety of the men and women, so many of them actually, who work offshore and who participate in the fishery. You know, I heard an interesting comment the other day made by someone in the midst of a discussion about this, and they said, you know, even if there was a sub-center, rescue center located as it is in St. John's, it wouldn't have done anything to save people, for example, on the Ocean Ranger or the people who were involved in the Cougar crash. While that's not entirely true, because if they didn't get to the one survivor in the Cougar crash very quickly, if someone didn't have to get to them quickly, that person likely would not have survived. But the truth of the matter is, it's not just about these catastrophic things. It's the hundreds of responses that are coordinated from the centre each and every year that are successful. And fortunately, because they're successful, they're not making the front page of the paper, because regrettably it's only the bad news and the tragedy very often in terms of these kinds of experiences that become headlines. So I just asked for the support of council. I'd like, Your Worship, for you to pen a letter, send it off immediately to the Minister, and in whatever ways we can to throw our support behind the overwhelming objection to the closure of this rescue facility. That sub-centre needs to stay where it is, and it needs to support the men and women who work in our fisheries and offshore, and I think we should do everything we can to try to save it.
Here on that. Indeed.
I'd like to just, so it's okay, we don't need a motion for that,
You
obviously.
can consider that done with
Yep.
the leave of council. Yeah, we'll take great pleasure in penning that one.
Excellent, thank you. Your Worship, I just want to highlight, as a result of the 2011 annual general meetings of Hockey Newfoundland and Labrador, this past weekend, the banquet and the awards presentation was held in Gander. The new president, I'm happy to say, is no stranger to Mount Pearl. Jack Lee raised his family here in Mount Pearl, was very involved as a technical director, a coach, past board member. He did pretty much everything with hockey in Mount Pearl that there is to be done. He's the new president, and he will be a great one, there's no doubt. Wally O'Neill, who was the past president of Mount Pearl Minor Hockey, was a recipient of the Brian Wakeland Executive of the Year Award for his contributions to hockey. Ed O'Brien was elected as secretary manager, and he's been the technical director with Mount Pearl Minor Hockey for the last couple of years, and again, a very, very capable individual. Dave Berry, who's been involved with female novice technical director of the programs in Mount Pearl Minor Hockey. He was the recipient of the Joe Byrne Development Award Honor Roll. Again, a tremendous honor. Scott Gordon, whom many of us know probably primarily through the Kentucky Cup games as coach of the Mount Pearl senior high teams, but he was involved and has been for many, many years in the Minor Hockey Association here in Mount Pearl. He won the Junior Meritorious Award for his contributions in mentoring hockey. Brian Cranford, whom many of us know also as a well-known RNC member, I think now retired, was the recipient of Hockey Canada Junior Recognition Award, and he's been many years involved in minor hockey. There were a couple that were actually in the memo that came out from our department. There were a couple that were actually not included. I know that Bonnie Evans continues to be served on the executive level in a minor hockey development role. Jerry Evans of Mount Pearl has been for 5 years the president of Hockey Newfoundland and Labrador. You know, hockey is a little bit like the Newfoundland fishery. There's always an issue, there's always a crisis, there's always a problem, there's always change. And I think Jerry handled most of that very, very well and was the recipient of the President's Ring. And there were 3 what they refer to as Gold Stick Awards, which are really honor awards. 3 of them given this year. And one of them was to Jerry Evans, obviously, for his contribution as president. Don Kelly, who's served and continues to serve as referee-in-chief, and Don is no stranger to any of us here in Mount Pearl. He was honored, and Bill Noseworthy, who, ironically enough, is actually heading up the reorganization of senior hockey in the province, and another person here in Mount Pearl who's been very, very actively involved. All 3 of them were given recognition through the Gold Stick Award. So I just want to extend congratulations to all of them. To Hockey Newfoundland and Labrador as well. I think they're in very capable hands, and obviously many of our Mount Pearl citizens and who've been involved in Mount Pearl minor hockey are making stellar contributions on the provincial scene, and I just wanted to recognize that and congratulate them. Thank you very much.
Sir, Councillor Stoyles.
And hats off to all the worthy people who were selected. I too was going to mention Jack Lee. There was a full-page article in this paper about Jack and growing up in Paddy Harbour and hitchhiking to play hockey. So it was a really nice story about Jack. I have a number of things, Your Worship. First thing I want to mention is yesterday the seniors started their summer. They're doing their dinners more close out the year, but the summer bus tours went on sale yesterday morning at the Reed Centre, and they do 4 different bus tours, and anybody who's interested in going, they're for sale at the Reed Centre. There's only go up and find out which one you would like to go on, and there's certainly a full day of activities for seniors. Anybody who's home and wondering what to do over the summertime, it's certainly a great opportunity for them to get out. And I know they've gone a number of places. They go to Woody Allen, they go to Carrier shopping. They just go 10 o'clock in the morning and spend the whole day and get back 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So it's probably it, because they do some shopping in some of those as well. And anybody who's a senior in Mount Pearl and wondering what to do, they certainly should get involved with our seniors group, especially our seniors independents. Also, Your Worship, the Mount Pearl Kinsmen and the Kinets, of course, finishing up their year. Glenn Kane is the new president. This is his 2nd year now. He's come back for a 2nd term, and present at Kinsman. I'd like for you to send a letter to Mr. Kane. And the Kinnett's has a brand new president, Sarah Breton, and I'd like for you to send her a letter wishing her well in the next coming year. Also, Your Worship, Save Our People Action Committee is doing a fundraiser on Thursday night at Tulsa's, and of course everybody knows about the Save Our People Action Committee, about the Moose lobbying government, and of course they're trying to raise some money to back posters and some educational material to pass out to people, and that's what the fundraiser is for. Also, M&L is doing an Avalon meeting in Cavernier this coming Saturday, and it's at Barnes Hotel from 9 to 3, so any council member would like to attend, they can still register, and we certainly would like to have some of our colleagues around the table attend. It's certainly going to be an interesting day with some educational material on it. The Northeast Avalon, of course, is finishing up, and they have their meeting and final night tomorrow night, and it was supposed to be at the City of St. John's, but they've changed the meeting to upstairs at Humphreys because they had such a large crowd. So the location has changed. That just came out this afternoon, and anybody who's interested in attending, we certainly would like to see them here. And Councillor Aker had mentioned the ALS walk. Well, Lupus, there was a giant walk between ALS and Lupus at the Reed Centre, and it was great to see the two groups come together and have their walk. And the staff at the Reed Centre, under the leadership of Bill Fitzgerald, was absolutely amazing. We couldn't expect any better. We've done our walk up there now. This is the 4th year for Lupus and the 2nd year for ALS, and both groups raised close to $4,000. So thank you to all the staff at the Reed Centre. And also, Your Worship, we're in the midst of 2 strikes here in the province. Air Canada, of course, started a strike today, and actually I was at the airport this afternoon with relatives, and the picketers are up, and of course Canada Post is doing the rotating strikes across the province. So I just wanted to note both of that as well. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor.
Just a couple of items, Your Worship. I mentioned out for a stroll last evening, and it was a great night. The sounds of summer. I said to my wife, you hear the children, and young people were on the trailways. They were jogging by, and I encountered a dog that was off the leash. Now, the dog wasn't a vicious dog. He was, a fairly large dog and an affable dog, but he proceeded to jump up on us, on my wife and I, and too friendly. And then there was another young lady walking her smaller dog, and of course the two dogs got into a little bit of an entanglement, and of course that caused some fear to the lady walking her little pooch. Just a reminder that now the dog owner eventually came around the turn, but he let the dog off the leash on the trailways. And if you want to let your dog free run, go to the dog park. But by all means, keep it tethered along the trailway for safety reasons. And the other thing I want to mention, in a couple of weeks, our young kiddies are going to be out on summer vacation. 1 week from this Friday, they're out for the summer. Actually, 1 week from this Thursday. So just keep in mind, because we've had some dreary weather. So as soon as the sun comes, these kids are bouncing off the ceiling. They're not paying attention to crosswalks and streets, so just a little reminder to the motorists to keep an eye to our young children. We want them to keep them safe. And that's it for me, Your Worship. Thank you.
Sir. Councillor Lane.
Yes, Your Worship, a couple of things. First of all, I just want to echo Councillor Walsh's remarks. I did have it there on the issue with search and rescue, and I'm sure, like most of us, was disgusted with the announcement. One question I would ask, to Your Worship, is perhaps we could, in addition to sending a letter, maybe it could be brought through to the urban municipalities meeting. I haven't heard anything, and maybe they've made a statement or whatever, M&L, but if they have, I certainly haven't heard it. I'm very surprised that M&L wouldn't be.
M&L has made a statement to the president, through the office. Harry Harding has made a statement.
Harry Hallett, has he?
Harry Hallett, rather.
Okay, I never heard it. I never heard it.
Yeah. Press release
So they have done a press release? Yeah. Okay, well, I was going to suggest we go through UMC.
Of course, it's a news release. It's not a press release. It's a news release.
A news release, okay. Anyway, it was a terrible decision, and hopefully, if there's enough people kicking up enough racket, that something will change. Your Worship, another issue I wanted to raise, and Deputy Mayor Locke spoke to the issue of dogs, so I'm going to go now to after the cats. And I think we've all get complaints this time of the year. I know all the council is aware of one particular complaint we received. I've received 4 complaints over the weekend. That was one of them, about the issue of cats roaming free. And I think while a lot of people, not everybody obviously, seem to get it, that you can't let Rover off running around the neighbourhood and so on. Most people get that. People still think it's okay to let Fluffy out in the morning and then she can come clawing at the door or purring or whatever, you know, at some point during the night. But it does cause an awful lot of havoc for the neighbours. We're not living in a rural setting. We're living in an urban setting, 50 by 100 lots or 40 by 100 townhouses, duplexes, so on. And the cats do get out. They, as I'm sure we've all heard, do damage to flower beds, to vegetable gardens, tear up garbage. They urinate on the property, burning the trees and shrubs, the odours and everything associated to it. So just to ask people, seeing as how we are televised for those who may be watching in the city of Mount Pearl, please, it is not okay to let your cat out roaming around the neighbourhood. The cats are supposed to be kept inside. If you're going to have it in the garden, it would have to be tethered the same as a dog would, so that it cannot get off your own property, creating a mess and expense to your neighbours and as well to public property as well. So I would certainly pass that along. The other item I had, Your Worship, Councillor, I believe you may have attended a function yesterday, did you not, at the Legion?
I did.
And Saturday, was it?
It was.
I had actually heard about it yesterday, and want to congratulate Mr. G. Fred Bannister. I believe there was another Mr. Starks as well from Mount Pearl, and there was 2 other gentlemen
Charlie
from...
Starks, John Moore.
And Mr. Ford? Mr. Ford.
Mr. Ford.
Yeah.
Yep. And Fred, yeah.
Yeah.
4.
Who all received awards for 65 years of service,
65 years
I believe,
of service to the Legion.
to the Legion, which is absolutely tremendous. I wasn't aware of all the others, but I had actually spoken to Fred yesterday, and
I know how Councillor Walsh feels now when Councillor Aker goes ahead of you, Councillor.
Yeah.
I have an understanding.
There you go. Anyway, certainly want to offer my congratulations, as I'm sure we all do, to all the recipients, and in particular, you know, we all got a soft spot for G. Fred. You know, the man is, 91 years old now, and he's still making a contribution. He's contributed not just to the Legion, but certainly I think he was the one who started Boy Scouts in Mount Pearl. He's a former city councillor, and you name it, he's been involved in this community. He's another guy like the Jim Bolgers of the world, the Pat O'Keefes of the world, people who have made a tremendous contribution to our community, and I want to congratulate him. The final item, Your Worship, is I want to bring it up again for anyone who may be watching this meeting, that you don't just have to watch our meetings here quarterly. You have the ability to watch it on your computer. We're the only council in the province that all of our meetings are webcasts. Our meetings are every second Tuesday, and you can actually go in on the internet at www.mountpearl.ca, and you can watch our meetings. You can watch them live, or at your leisure at any time into the archive folder. You can go in and actually watch these meetings. They're not the most exciting thing in the world, as we all know, but it is a good source of information. And you find it exciting?
I love it.
Well, but I mean, yeah, but we love listening to ourselves talk, right? We're legends in our own mind. But you know, no, it is a good source of information, and we all put it in place because, as we know, you know, you hear it from residents over the years talking about accountability, transparency, and sometimes people say, well, you can't go to a council meeting, is at 4:15 I have to work. Well, that excuse is now eliminated. You may not be able to go to the actual meeting, but you can go in on your computer and watch the meeting anytime. So I just want to advise residents that service is here, and you can go in and watch the meetings. We would encourage you to do so. That's it, Your Worship, for me. Thank you.
Councillor Tessier.
I will be short and sweet, much like myself.
Short anyway.
We're extending accolades to a lot of fundraising initiatives that have happened in Mount Pearl recently. So at our last public council meeting, we had discussed Kick for a Cure, which has Newfoundland Labrador Soccer Association and specifically Mount Pearl Minor Soccer had an event last Monday, and while the final numbers are not in, and it was a dreary night, as the deputy mayor and Councillor Aker can attest as well, because they came down and braved the fog for a little while. Some of us stayed a lot longer, and some of us had the power to put both the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Aker in pink for a little while, which was lovely. But anyway, final numbers are not in yet, but they're looking at close to $10,000 raised, actually, for a first-time event. So
Very
the
nice.
organizers, Mike Oliver, Jeff Tiller, everybody involved, just phenomenal effort. And I know that they plan on making it an annual event. So again, I thought, if we're acknowledging, boy, we got to acknowledge, because that's a big deal.
Here.
The Deputy Mayor alluded to schools ending next week. We're also in the midst of, or we're at the beginning of, some serious construction. We all know that there's 2 seasons in Newfoundland, winter and construction season. So with the children out and with the construction zones, again, right, people got to be very, very cautious with what they're doing, maintain patience, and certainly give themselves an adequate amount of time, or choose an alternate route when they're driving around our city. I have received a couple of complaints about fireworks. It happens every time of year, or every time the weather clears up this time of year, and I've noticed it myself as well. On the weekends, because they are so accessible and inexpensive, fireworks can be purchased just about anywhere now, and anybody can set them off. And we know we've had issues with them in the past. But now they're going off quite late at night. It's disruptive to families with small children. It's certainly disruptive to anybody with pets. That was the prayer of a complaint that I received as well. It's very disruptive to a family. Again, right, especially if your animal is sensitive to those things, it can take quite some time to get them settled down. So again, I would encourage anybody who wants to avail of and use fireworks for their own leisure to be mindful of your neighbors, be mindful of the hour on the weekends as well. I've heard them go off as late as 1 o'clock in the morning.
Respect.
So it's very, very important, exactly, to respect your neighbors when you're undertaking that recreational activity. Also, a week and a half ago now, when we were up at FCM, I went up a little early and had the honor of accepting a recognition certificate from CAMA. And I know that there's going to be an official presentation here in public chambers in the near future. But I feel, given the cameras are here, I think it's very important that we recognize it as well. The City of Mount Pearl was given a certificate of recognition from CAMA on our glacier expansion, and the Eco-Chill more specifically. And of course, as we all know, that particular endeavor with our recreational facility is now going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from that facility by 56%. We have 100% heat recovery from what they call rejected heat. So again, it was really quite an honor to be there on Council's behalf. CAMA is Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators.
Just in case someone didn't know.
Yes, and I must say, with thousands and thousands of municipalities in Canada, 10 were recognized. And for the City of Mount Pearl to be recognized, I have to tell you, it was just quite an honor. And to hear the actual prelude to what we did, and to see people going, interesting. And to see people came up to us after and said, "Is this on your website? Is this?" So it was really interesting. And I mean, also to be there to hear what other people were being recognized for. We're doing a lot of it. We're doing a lot of it already. Paperless meetings, for example. So again, very, very nice to be recognized. I think that all of council and city staff and everybody who certainly helped make that endeavor a reality should be commended. So I hope that it is the beginning of many initiatives like that for our community. So again, it was a pleasure, and I look forward to the presentation when it comes here formally as well.
Thank you very much. Hearing no other business, we will conclude on that note. Motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Aker. We stand adjourned.
Let me sure.